In 2025, the three-pointer has become the most desired shot in basketball. Teams are figuring out how to shoot more threes, and players are inventing new ways to take more threes. But there's one team that has constantly pushed the three-pointer aside. Over the past 4 years, the Nuggets have averaged 32 threes, which has consistently been the lowest in the league. Yet, they have been a top 5 offense every single season as well. So, how can we make sense of this? The most obvious answer is that Nikola Jokic started to take over the league as he's won 3 MVPs over the past 4 seasons. And naturally, with your center as your best player and scorer, the team's three-point volume will drop down. But there's some philosophical aspects of Denver's offense that makes them such a uniquely effective team. The roster on paper doesn't look so modernized. There's only 2 great shooters on this team, with their center being their best shooter. But it's the way they've structured their offense which allows them to have 2 non-shooters on the floor at all times. Denver is one of the few teams that really believes in using all parts of the court to attack. And the reason it works is because they lean on a lot of off-ball movement to put pressure on the defense. The most common type of off-ball movement is the cut. Most of you could probably envision cuts happening when Jokic is in the post. That's because he might be the only big man that consistently throws passes in very tight spaces. There's 3 Cavs around the paint, including the taller Evan Mobley, but he threads it to Westbrook with momentum, but he just misses the dunk. On this one, he's got the smaller Strus, and Watson cuts a little too early, but Jokic still throws it up, and Watson adjusts himself nicely. Essentially, when Jokic is in the post, he can throw a pass anywhere and at any time. While teams know that, they don't really realize how much space they really need to take away. With Westbrook on the wing and Gordon in the dunker spot, Jeremy Grant thinks he's in a pretty good position, but Jokic threads the needle to Westbrook, and Grant doesn't even react because he didn't think that pass could get through. In a theoretical world, the best offense would be to give Jokic enough space to post and then wait for a pass and an open shot. But I think Jokic doesn't prefer that because he believes that every part of the floor can be used to attack. He's timed up his passes so well that as long as his teammates catch it, the defense just doesn't have time to contest the shot. When Jokic isn't in the post, Denver loves using off-ball screens to open up lanes to the rim. With Jokic setting the screens on top, the big men are pulled up with him, which leaves no rim protection. So with these back screens, that gives the ball handler multiple options. Jamal Murray takes the floater, but he also has Peyton Watson for the lob if he wants it. Today, defenses are built upon squeezing space away from star players as much as possible, so these cuts are extremely crucial to keeping these defenses honest, which opens up tons of different opportunities. Here, Jokic sets a backstreet for Murray to cut, which then opens up a Westbrook and Peyton Watson pick and roll out of all things, and if you look at the play again, Allen needs to cover the Murray cut, so he's late once he realizes that Watson slips to the basket. Here's another example where there's 2 screens for cuts this time. Because each defender is occupied, Westbrook has all this space to drive, and it's Jokic who cuts to the rim. Besides these back screens and cuts, the other thing that I really like is putting someone in the dunker spot. Most people think that someone in the dunker spot will often clog up the drive because that invites a defender into the paint. But especially in Denver's case, having someone at the 3-point line actually makes it easier on the defense to close out to a worse shooter. So if you don't shoot well, you might as well be at the rim. That then gives the ball handler another option, especially when the defender's instinct is to help on the drive. Besides Jokic, Russell Westbrook has made a living driving the rock to collapse the defense and dumping it to the man in closed spaces. I also like that Jokic is rarely in the dunker spot. It's usually Aaron Gordon or someone smaller, so now a smaller defender is the main rim protector, and they don't have the size to deter the drive and then get back to their man in time. The other reason they don't shoot many threes is because their screens are set really low. Most high-volume 3-point shooting teams set screens really high to give the ball handler enough space to step into a 3-point shot. But notice how Jokic initiates that dribble handoff inside the 3-point line, which gives Westbrook the space to drive. There's that Brown cut, which collapses the defense, and instead of forcing a shot, he kicks it out, and Porter turns down the 3 for a free throw line jumper. These screens are meant to give the ball handler separation to then create that space to drive. Even when teams try to top block, the screener is so tight to the defender that a little move makes it hard to stay attached to their matchup. And Murray can settle for this jumper, but he knows that Jokic has the better matchup, so the Nuggets drive the ball again and then are rewarded for it. As you may have noticed from those last 2 plays, Denver never feels that they need to rush a shot. So even if one action is closed off, they can move into another action quickly and then use more movement to create a potential reaction. Now, just because they're not shooting threes doesn't mean they don't want them. It's just that their priority is to dominate the paint, and the defense's reaction to their hard paint cuts and drives will open up those high quality threes. As a result, Denver is actually a good 3-point shooting team despite their roster not being known as great shooters. They're actually 4th right now in 3-point percentage at 38%. Yes, it might take them 20 seconds to get one after all that hard cutting and passing, but it's all within the flow of the offense. Most teams try to find the first available 3, which plays into the pace and space philosophy that most teams have implemented. Now this year, Denver is top 5 in pace, which makes it look like they're a fast offense, and that is true, but they tend to use the shot clock in the half court. But that doesn't mean that they're just moving slower. Instead, they're moving fast but using all those 24 seconds on the shot clock, which forces teams to play disciplined defense through all the screens and cutting. The reason why they play fast is because they run when they can. Denver has averaged 5 more transition opportunities this year compared to last season. A big part of that is because they signed Russell Westbrook, who's always been a player that only knows fast, and subsequently, the Nuggets have elected to play much faster by getting out on the break more often. When Jokic is on the floor, everyone's running because they're anticipating his outlet pass. But with Westbrook, now they have someone who can really initiate fast breaks with the dribble. He's not afraid of making tough passes either, so he's done a really good job taking pressure away from executing in the half court so often. And with athletes like Aaron Gordon and Christian Braun on the floor, they're always looking for easy opportunities. But my favorite is when they set screens in transition. With the Cavs scrambling, Peyton Watson sets a screen on LeVert, so Niang, who's the only guy in the paint, thinks he needs to go defend Brown, which then opens up all that space at the rim. Other times, they'll set screens for the ball handler, and it doesn't look like much, but it forces the help defender to retreat to their matchup, which then opens up the space on the wing to drive. By finding more transition opportunities, it can help offset the need to find threes all the time. While they lose the 3-point battle most nights, the Nuggets typically dominate the paint, which is why they continue to stay as a top 5 offense. But if you have followed them this year, the Nuggets have been prone to being upset by bad teams, and a lot of that has to do with the variance that comes from 3-point shooting. If a team like the Wizards has Jordan Poole firing up 9 to 10 threes one night, Denver has to work extra hard to catch up because they're primarily shooting 2s. On some nights, they'll be very efficient, but if the opponent is just as good, they're more than likely gonna lose. In past years, Denver has also lost a 3-point battle most nights, but they won a chip and have been a top 2 seed. So what's the difference this year? Well, it really comes down to their defense. This year, they have at best been a middling defensive team. They're naturally at a disadvantage with Jokic generally being a defensive liability, even with his high IQ. So as long as there's an opening, the opponent has a pretty good chance of scoring. But their perimeter defense as a whole has digressed, especially in the pick and roll. They've had a harder time navigating screens, which then opens up the paint. And in general, guys are catching it deeper in the paint, so they just have to go up. We're seeing more blow-bys this year as well, which is vastly different from their defense that was stifling stars over the past few seasons. So when teams can get into the paint easier, that will open up more 3-point opportunities, which Denver can't afford to allow as much this season. Which is why the Nuggets offense is very impressive. They have a unique talent in Nikola Jokic, who's able to facilitate this style, but it's their creativity, motion, and patience that can wear teams down for 48 minutes. They've been top 5 in offensive efficiency for the last 4 years because they've abandoned the popularized pace and space style and high volume 3-point shooting. And that's what makes them so refreshing to watch in the modern NBA.